OneLitPodcast may contain adult language and sensitive subject matter. Please take care while listening.
Hey everyone, I'm Olivia.
Andria.
I'm Hayden.
And welcome to our second episode of OneLitPodcast.
Woo!
If this is your first time tuning in, then welcome to our book club. We're a group of friends who enjoy discussing books and writing and also a nice glass of wine. What have you all got to drink today?
Today we are drinking Huber Winery Blackberry Sweet Wine.
It's actually pretty good.
So that's what Hayden and Andria have, and I guess I'm just a cheapskate, but I have Barefoot Pink Moscato, but you know what? I've already had a cup of this, and I'm getting lit anyways off of it, so whatevs. Alright, so we're going to be discussing the book that we've been reading, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. And if you're just tuning in, we are discussing them blind. None of us have read this book, so we don't know what's going to happen, and we're also not discussing it with each other outside the podcast. So this is the first time that we are actually talking about it, getting everyone's perspective on it. So let's just jump in. Pour yourself a glass, snuggle up in a cozy corner, and get ready to get lit. Alright, so this week we're going over chapters 10 through 19 of our book, Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. So if you wanted to join us as we go along, then just make sure you've read everything up to this point because there will be spoilers. And I just wanted to start this off. I was doing a little bit of research about vampires, and I was looking on Britannica.com, and it has most of the usual stuff that I hear about vampires with the steaks and garlic and all, but something funny that I found that you guys would probably find funny is some people believed that babies born on Christmas or between Christmas and Epiphany are predisposed to becoming vampires.
Oh.
So I think Jesus was a vampire. Like,
Interesting.
Seriously, Jesus wasn't born on Christmas. And Andrea and I grew up in the church and everything, but we're not really religious anymore. So he came back to life after 3 days. And, he turned the water into wine, but who's to say that's not blood? And then, with the blood, Catholics do believe that the sacramental wine they take during communion does literally turn into the blood. Yeah, they call it transubstantiation.
You also eat the flesh.
Yeah, and they also eat the flesh and everything.
So vampire zombie.
Vampire zombie, maybe, I don't know. And then I went down another rabbit hole. I know this doesn't cover the book at all, but I just went down this little bit of a rabbit hole because it was between Christmas and Epiphany, and I'm like, what's Epiphany? So that is another Christian holiday commemorating the Magi visiting baby Jesus. Wow. So it basically spans between December 25th and January 6th, which is 12 days.
Oh.
It's the 12 days of Christmas.
Oh.
That's a very tiny window
I know. There. But it said, they, gave, presents to kids and everything because it, commemorated the Magi giving gifts to Jesus. So I'm just, I figured out where the 12 Days of Christmas song came from. By looking up vampires.
Wow. Interesting.
I figured it out. But anyway.
That is fascinating.
Sorry about going down that rabbit hole, y'all. But, so, where we stopped off, we were at the book club meeting where Miss Mary came in naked and wet. Yes. And she was accusing James of being this Hoyt Pickens guy. So the next scene shows the Campbells basically freaking out because there's someone on their roof.
Yes.
Also, I think it's funny that Corey is reading Salem's Lot. by Stephen King, because that's about vampires
Right.
and everything. And then, like, as Patricia is going out the door to, like, go to get help, James Harris is
Of
right
course.
there.
My hero.
And he walks in saying, "Oh, I saw your lights on. I wanted to check on you." He comes in. First off, he tells them not to call the police.
Yeah.
And it's like, "I'm here now. No need to call the police."
And he gets very upset with her. Because she's
Yeah.
like, no, I'm going to call the cops.
It's like, no.
He was also
Don't do it,
very
Patricia.
pushy about seeing the mother-in-law.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he wants to go check on
Check
Miss
on her.
Mary. But Patricia, she, like, gets an uneasy feeling. And she's just like, "Oh my gosh, no. Like, I don't know what it is, but no, let's not do this." But then I was thinking, what do you guys think he was going to do with her? Like, with the family there.
I think maybe his plan was, since they were so busy and all worked up, he could go in there alone, maybe have something happen. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because, of course, something happens later, which I think he's involved with. We'll get onto that later.
Yeah.
But I think he was possibly wanting to kill her.
I'd wondered if he was going in there to look for this photo that she...
Destroy the photo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably right.
That's a good idea because of, like, basically what happens next and everything. But yeah, whenever I read that, I was just like, wait, what is he planning on doing? Like the family is there, like, freaking out, and he's just like, "Well, let me check on her really fast." Like, what? You're just gonna, like, then they're gonna walk in and be like, "Oh my gosh, Miss Mary is dead." Like, how did that
What did you do,
happen?
James?
My biggest thing with this whole chapter and this whole scene that's happening, I don't necessarily understand why he would be up on the roof whenever he has access to their home at any time.
Yeah.
That's
Why
true.
would he be roaming up there and lurking in the shadows when he can just walk in whenever he wants?
Yeah.
The windows are open, doors are unlocked.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping him.
Just to be extra creepy.
I guess so.
Just to cast suspicion onto someone else.
Maybe.
I mean, he could, yeah, like you said, like, he basically has access to, like, come in whenever.
Mhm.
You can just do it in the middle of the night whenever everyone's asleep.
Exactly. You didn't have to do that.
Probably just some added fear
What if it's
from
not
Grady
James?
Hendrix. What if it's not James? I think we
You know-
know that it probably is.
At this point, we've read these 100 pages, everybody. We're just talking about it. We know it was probably him. At the same time, though, I kind of feel like maybe it wasn't.
There was a little part of me that thought that there might be another vampire
Right.
involved. I don't think so. I think he's working by himself right now.
I feel like maybe there's someone else involved, and he showed up to get the photograph, but it also stopped the other person. Maybe. I don't know.
What if James is like the Edward Cullen who doesn't, like violence, and he's trying to prevent this other person from doing it?
Based on what happens later, I don't think so.
We'll have to talk about some of his motives later, especially on who he's targeting.
Yeah. All right,
We'll talk about it later.
So after that whole escapade, Patricia is putting everyone back to bed, and Miss Mary just has this like she's been like in the throes of like Alzheimer's or dementia, basically like throughout the start of the book. But now she has like a very lucid conversation with Patricia about like why she's obsessed with this man that she calls White Pickens. So it's because she accuses him of killing her father.
Yes.
So she goes into the backstory of this guy, Hoyt Pickens, who came into town, basically talked her dad into selling his special moonshine he made, said it would make him rich. So a lot of people in the town pour their money into the scheme. He's like, "Oh, like you'll start to see your money back in like 6 months," which won't happen. Then
He enticed him with money up front.
yes, he did. He heard Miss Mary's dad gave him some moonshine
called
to sell.
Pig spit, is that she?
Rabbit
Rabbit
spit.
spit?
Rabbit
Yeah.
spit in Colombia.
And then he's like, comes out with a wad of cash, and he's like, oh my gosh, this is like great. My buyers will give you money, but they have to go through, I don't know about making moonshine, but they have to like go through this really long process. So it's gonna take some time, but you'll see your money start coming back.
He said, wait for it to turn brown, and then you'll make some money. Yeah.
But then these kids start to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And Hoyt, like, pins it on this black man, Leon Sims. So he's racist, for one.
Mm-hmm.
So the people in town take Leon, bury him alive under a peach tree.
In the backyard.
In the backyard of their house.
Yeah.
And then Hoyt just ups and vanishes.
Yep.
And the townspeople don't get their money from the moonshine because they don't know who it's been sold to.
Mm-hmm.
And everything. And then Miss Mary's dad pops himself.
Hangs himself in the barn.
Yeah.
Yeah, for my notes of this chapter, it was, what a story. Hoyt Pickens shows up, children go missing, seems to be helping the family, but they end up worse off, leads to more death and suicide. So really, he came in, destroyed the family.
Mm-hmm.
And that is who Miss Mary thinks.
And like the other townspeople and everything, because they put their money into the moonshine business too. And it said that like they didn't have a good like crop growing season, so they had to like bring crops like from other places, which like also depleted their money and everything. And it's like, all right, like the banks aren't gonna take just an IOU or anything. So it's like putting the rest of the town kind of in the dumps too. So I was gonna go back to this racist theme.
Yeah, there are some racist themes for sure.
My main thing, Blue and his fascination with Nazis.
Yeah, that's really... he's obsessed.
He's so obsessed. And I'm just like, white supremacy much?
Yeah. It's kind of weird that Patricia isn't as concerned about it as I thought she would be.
She just kind of lets it go. Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, James, come talk to my son about Nazis.
Yeah.
You're bonding.
Yeah. And she does say, she says something like, I think it's like a little bit foreshadowing, because she goes, or I think it's, I don't know if it's the author talking, but it says, you know, years from now, after all that happens, she thinks back about these moments at the kitchen table with James talking about Nazis with her son, and she gets all warm and fuzzy inside.
Like, that's so weird.
Yeah.
Like, you should not have
She's
that much of a fascination.
It is kind of strange, too, because I didn't realize that as we're reading this, how much time is actually passing, and Blue is still obsessed with Nazis. And this has been like years.
Yeah.
It's been years that Blue wants nothing to do with anything other than Nazis.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I got the quote here, I highlighted it. So it says, even after everything that came later, when everything in her life hurt, the memory of those nights wrapped her in a soft, sweet glow that often carried her away to sleep. And it's just them sitting in a nice family table, and he's talking to her son about Nazis.
I'm glad to know my son's Nazi.
Yeah, so there's those themes of that, the story about how Leon was buried alive.
Yeah.
You have this great moment with Miss Mary where she is lucid, and then all of a sudden there's rats.
Yes, I was just about to come to that. So I was gonna say we keep seeing
The swamp rats.
So, like, we've seen references to different animals before. Like, in the beginning, Miss Mary said she saw an owl in her room. And then we have a cockroach falling from the ceiling, like, into her water. And then we have the rat scene, which was probably the most...
Very apocalyptic.
the very grossest scene, I think, so far. So it just made me think of, like... in Bram Stoker's Dracula, like, he has the ability to control animals and also turn into animals. So,
That's sort of why previously in the last episode we talked about the owl and how Miss Mary was saying that the owl bit her. I kind of think that there is that connection there.
Yeah.
But back to the rats.
So we definitely think that the rats were sent by James to get her.
Mm-hmm.
Because she like, right before that happened, she had found the picture, like, that she claims was like, oh, this is like the right picture of Point Pickens. And because she had been like finding photographs and she's like, oh, this is the one. But then she was like, oh, wait, no, not this one. She was like, I found it. I'm going to show Patricia. And then rats.
Yeah.
So you have Miss Green
Mm-hmm.
and Miss Mary there together with the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, a sea of rats come in and completely fill the floor.
Yeah.
And that dog is such a good dog.
Yeah.
Such a good boy. Where Miss Green kind of like abandons him.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
She has to.
I get it.
She has to.
She's also, I would probably do the same thing, you know.
She's also traumatized because apparently this happened to her and her sister as a kid. Like,
She had...
her sister's, like, a rat started eating into her belly button.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't sure if she was seeing things or this was a dream or it actually happened. In the book, it actually happens, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if this was like a dream she had.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so a rat was biting her sister. Okay.
Oh, yeah, because...
Yeah, that was... Yeah. And then, going back to the picture, it says Miss Green saw the rats, like, going up on the mother-in-law. What's her name?
Mary.
Mary.
Miss Mary.
Going up on Miss Mary, and her arm is, like, extended upwards, like, with the picture in her hand.
Oh, God, I don't get
Yeah,
it.
But then Miss Green's like, I can't stay. I go to the bathroom.
Yeah, she goes to the bathroom where rats are climbing out of the toilet.
Yeah. I was kind of like, how did she get out of there?
Yeah, she just waited for all of them to disperse and everything. But yeah, like the picture, I was wondering if Patricia's gonna find it later.
Yeah.
It never came up. She never found it.
Yeah. Well, like, but it doesn't say that, like, it didn't mention anything about, like, the rats taking it or, like, destroying it or anything. So I don't know if she's gonna, like, find it. Because I feel like the rats were kind of just there, like, to attack Miss Mary and everything. It's just like, all right, like, she's found me out. Let's dispose of her and everything. But I, like, the picture, like, I don't know if he knows that there's an actual picture of him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, I wonder if she's going to find it later. Because they, like, didn't actually destroy it. And then she's like, oh my gosh, this is actually James.
Right. And for the listeners, this isn't like a normal rat. You know, this is a sea of rats. Like,
Yes.
spoiler alert, Miss Mary ends up dying after having severe wounds. Thank goodness the dog survives. The dog survives, fortunately. But Miss Green, who has been taking care of her, has to have several stitches. Just from the rats, like, not even biting her necessarily, but just running along her and cutting her to pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's traumatizing. She's okay.
Yeah.
But Miss Mary does die, and the dog survives.
Woo! Thank God.
I know, I got real sad for a second. But the dog lives.
I know. I'm like, the dog's dead. And then he flips the page. Oh, he's alive.
Yeah, no, because Patricia walks in and the dog's just laying there, cut to pieces.
Well, it said something. I don't remember what it said, but I thought it said something about, like, oh, he was such a good boy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's dead.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, he's alive.
She sort of, from how I read it, Patricia walks up and the dog does seem to be dead.
Okay.
But the dog realizes that she's there and starts wagging its tail.
Yeah.
So that's how we know the dog lives. And the vet says that he'll live, so thank goodness. One dog bone for the dog.
I think our dog would protect us.
He'd do his darndest. So just in general for chapter 13, though, moving on from the rat attack and not being able to find the picture, some notes that I had. Dog lives. Mother dies. Boo Daddy rhyme foreshadowing. So now I should get onto that.
Yes. So there is a big shift when we go to 6 Mile, and Patricia sees Mrs. Green. Everyone there is just on edge. We start to hear that weird little rhyme that the girls are saying while jumping rope. We start to hear that people have been going missing. And there's this talk about this white man in the woods who's possibly luring children away. So we already have Ann Savage, his old housekeeper Francine.
Yes.
Who disappeared and no one's seen her. And then Mrs. Green tells us about 2 boys who were killed. One of them, walks in front of traffic, and they claim it as a suicide and everything, but it's kind of just it's kind of suspicious.
So that one seemed really strange to me.
Because he was really young. Right?
He was 8.
Yeah.
8-year-old Orville Reed.
Yeah. They're just an 8-year-old doesn't solve and everything.
And also, while waiting for the bus, he runs in front of a tow truck.
Yeah. And
they still have an open casket funeral where he just has a bruise on his face.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Miss Green says specifically, he got hit so hard that he flew 50 feet and his shoes were knocked off.
Yeah.
If you ask me, there would be more than just a bruise.
He heals quickly.
I guess so.
And then the second kid who died was that other kid's cousin. And he basically just got killed in the woods because he went to go meet whoever was in the woods, and he was gonna
he had a weapon.
Basically approach him.
Yeah, that was Sean, and he had all he could afford, which was a hammer, which he rented for $3.
Yeah. So, and then they find his body just broken,
brutally murdered,
brutally just destroyed,
face completely smashed into a tree.
Yeah. So there's the housekeeper that disappeared, these 2 boys who have died, and then we have a girl, Destiny, who is currently having weird symptoms.
Similar symptoms at that.
Very similar symptoms to what the boys were having.
And who goes with Patricia to the house?
Miss Green.
Kitty.
Or no, at first it is Kitty.
Yes. Kitty goes with her.
Reluctantly.
Mrs. Green.
Miss Green is telling them all of this, and she's like, well, it wasn't in the news.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the paper.
Kitty reluctantly goes with Patricia.
And that's just kind of highlighting, again, that the race theory, right? Mm-hmm. That they live in this very protective bubble, and they're not going to hear news from...
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. 6 Mile is very different from the old village. So it's a very poor neighborhood that has a lot of African American people living in there. Just based on context clues. I don't know if it actually comes out and says there's African Americans living there, but
it doesn't.
A few places it kind of just has some context clues to where you might.
And so it's
think that's what he's trying to say.
One thing about Francine, it's just implied that she ran off with a man.
Yeah.
Right. And that plays to the whole... I mean, there are plenty of murder stories and other podcasts that you probably listen to where, they're talking about murders that just go overlooked because they are in the minority community. Mm-hmm. For sure. And that's sort of what this is implying as well, that this is a minority community and nothing that happens there makes it to the news and it's not investigated.
Yeah, the police aren't taking the cases seriously. Like you said, Patricia mentions, well, I haven't heard it in the news or anything. It's just that's because the police, aren't, taking these seriously and everything. And then, where it takes the police 3 minutes to get to the old village, it takes them, 30 minutes or longer to reach the people in 6 Mile. So response time for the crime, really, low and everything. And then while Patricia's at Mrs. Green's house, we find out that Mrs. Green got a partial license plate of a car, and that partial matches James Harris's van. Mm-hmm. But while Patricia's going past his house, he has a red Chevy in the driveway now.
Yeah, seemingly sold his van.
Mm-hmm.
Also, something else I want to touch on. I want to take a moment just to mention this. Still in the same chapter, Do we think it's weird that Miss Green just has Christmas
Obsessed
stuff
with Christmas
everywhere?
stuff.
Obsessed with Christmas.
I was thinking that.
She has a cross-stitch pillow of Santa holding the baby Jesus.
As she's telling the story, it's mentioned that there are just these Christmas lights that are constantly flashing and changing lights. So we're hearing this horrible story of these children going missing and dying and being brutally murdered. And it's just Christmas Wonderland.
It's just Christmas.
Yeah. Christmas Wonderland.
I did think that. I was like, wait, what time of year is this going on?
Oh, it's obviously summer.
Summer.
Completely forgot.
In
Because
the-
it mentions a lot. Though.
In one of the next...
It's been up for a while because when they roll up to the house,
It's faded.
Patricia says there's a Santa sign and it's faded in the window.
It's like sun bleached.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I did find that really strange, but yes, it's like summertime because later on she mentions that just walking outside from the air conditioning is like this hot, soupy mess, and it's like hard to breathe through a wet washcloth.
I mean, I love Halloween. I would love to have Halloween decorations up like year long.
I do.
I do.
Off
have some
topic.
Halloween decorations up all year.
Off topic, I do love seeing the Halloween decorations, and I kind of wish that all the companies would do it all year long. It's just fun to look at.
I mean,
Off topic.
I got all my skulls like on my bookshelf and everything.
Olivia has a ton of skulls.
I do have a ton of skulls. I have
Lots and lots of
Seven
skulls.
skulls at her wedding.
I have a small skull collection. But yeah, so going back, so we see a new car in his driveway, and there is a little quote about it. Patricia describes it as glowing like a puddle of fresh blood,
Yes.
and I love that.
Mhm.
So then Patricia goes back to 6 Mile later on after just like thinking everything over, and she's just like, oh my gosh, I really think James Harris is the person who is behind this. I need to go to this child who's like having these symptoms. So they go to 6 Mile and talk to Destiny's mom about trying to see her. And whenever she goes into her room, she's gone.
Destiny is gone. And it doesn't take Patricia long as the mother is frantically searching the house and sort of losing it. The window is
Mhm.
unlatched and
Mhm.
easily open with no screen.
Yeah. It's like you can easily get out of there. Like either Destiny like went out on her own
Which I don't think she did.
to go to the man in the woods, or someone could have easily like just
Mhm.
popped in and grabbed her.
I think she was taken.
I think
I do. Which, let me make sure I'm looking at my notes correctly really quick. So, before we even get to that, there's a conversation that Patricia has with Grace
Yes.
about all these suspicions, and it really makes Patricia think she doesn't really know these people that are around her and in her life, and she's starting to question just about everybody around her, even her husband, starting to say, is he actually working late? Could he be cheating on me? Are my friends actually doing the things that they say that they're doing?
Yeah.
You know, because people are obviously going to be a little different behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
So she really starts to realize that. I think she's been kind of in this, small suburb
Right,
bubble
and
where she has that mindset.
That goes
Yeah.
back to appearances.
Yeah.
And,
Of course.
When she's like talking to all her girlfriends, she's like, we need to do something about James. And like, I've got proof that this is his place. And they're like, really? Like, his van just so happened to drive by there. And now it's sold to another person. Like, you're being ridiculous. How do you know?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, what if somebody came to you about like Ted Bundy and told you this? And like, would you look into it, or
Mhm.
would you like shrug it off like you're shrugging me off right now?
Yeah.
Lots of references to Ted Bundy there and
Yeah.
Rule. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna come back.
They're kind of like back to the appearances thing. They're like, if we make a big deal out of it, it's gonna be really embarrassing for us if there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like,
and
we need more evidence.
Yeah, and before that part, she goes to Grace specifically. And Grace just completely shuts her down, isn't willing to hear it.
Yeah.
Gets upset with her that she's even mentioning it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of shocked Grace is her first. She goes to, because Grace just, I don't think she really believes in Patricia much anyway. I feel like Kitty and the others would be more likely like Slick is, because she comes back. She's like, finally, I have my duty from God.
Yes, the Lord has given me my purpose.
But back to what's happening. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Back to what's happening, though, is that this child is missing.
Mm-hmm.
Patricia decides it's a good idea to actually go searching into the woods with just a flashlight for this child.
Yes.
Because the police are going to take forever. And I love the fact that she walks outside with this flashlight all alone, and Miss Green just shuts the door and locks it behind her. As she's starting to search.
Nobody's outside.
Yeah, so she's walking through the woods, comes across this like weird road and everything. She finds James Harris's van. So she's like, oh my gosh, he's in there. Looks through the front, doesn't see anything.
Can't really see anything. It's got the tent, it's dark.
Throws open the back doors. He is there, hunched over Destiny. And it says, Patricia's like, he's got blood on his chin. There's a weird little appendage thing sticking from his mouth that retracts back in and everything. But she's like, she has a flashlight in his face, so he doesn't really like see her or anything. And then she gets the fuck out of there.
Yeah, so
he's blinded. He has no idea who this is.
Yeah.
I think he has an idea based on the scene later, but
he has suspicion.
It's implied that he's blinded at this moment, and so we find out that James Harris is basically a mosquito.
Another bloodsucker.
He's a mosquito, pretty much. He has this appendage that is, quote unquote,
it just pops out.
It looks like a roach's leg.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what she calls it.
Yeah.
So this vampire doesn't have fangs.
He does not have fangs. He's not the sexy vampire that everyone hoped he would be.
He's got a weird little straw coming from his throat.
Yeah.
Just suck it up.
So Patricia, of course, books it.
Yeah.
Gets back to the main road and finds the police. They go to Destiny's, they go to Destiny's mom's house. Her name is Taylor, right? The mom. I think her name is Taylor. I think her name is Wanda.
I think it is Wanda.
It is Wanda, yes.
Wanda's house. So the police come in and they're like, we can't find her. The police go into the bedroom. They bring out Destiny and are like, oh, this happens sometimes. If a kid
completely blows it off.
If a kid falls asleep in a weird place and you
could be hiding in the closet, and Patricia gets offended like, she doesn't even have a closet. What are you talking about?
Patricia's like, Patricia's standing there. She's like, I am literally telling you what I saw firsthand. So it's kind of sad that, like, not only do they not believe Destiny's mom, but they also don't believe, like, Patricia is like, I mean, like, racism and everything is like, all right, well, Patricia's at least, like, white.
Right.
And everything. But it's like, oh, like, you're a woman and everything. So there's sexism in here, too.
Yes.
Believe her.
And before this, for a little bit of back explanation, Carter shows up. And this is because Patricia actually left a note for him stating that she was going to be out here if he wanted to find her. So he does come out there, and I was actually sort of proud of him in this moment because he is defending his wife. He's standing up to the police. He's saying, yes, if she saw it, it happened. You need to believe her. Because they were completely blowing it off. I was proud of him for all of like 5 minutes.
That's like the only good thing that he's like done in this entire book so far.
I didn't like him before, but I felt good. I thought he was going to have a redemption arc here, and it did not last very long.
I know.
Even after this, like, they go home, and she's like, that night for the first time in months, Carter held her while she slept.
Yes. Yeah. She felt safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, we're making progress. I am totally going to come back to Carter.
Okay.
In a second. Yeah, so they go home after all of this. So she goes home. It's like a day or two later. She gets a knock on the door. It's James Harris. And he tries to be all nice. And he's like, oh, the police. God. Because, like, she told the police, like,
it was James.
I know who's doing it. It's James Harris. I literally saw him in his van, like, sticking some kind of... Because, like, she obviously knows that she can't tell the police about, like, the whole little appendage coming from his mouth and everything. Because she's just like, all right, there's no way that they're gonna believe me. So she basically starts telling everybody that, like, he's a drug dealer and everything. So she tells the police, I literally saw him sticking something into this girl and everything. So the police go and, like, talk to him. So whenever James comes over, he's, like, trying to be all nice. He's like, the police came to see me. There are rumors going around about me.
Of course, Patricia's keeping her distance because she knows what she saw.
Yeah. He's like,
but he immediately picks up on it.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want you to think bad of me. He's like, oh, of course not.
Come on in.
But the thing that gave me goosebumps, whenever she first answered the door and he's like, oh, did I catch you during a meal? I got interrupted during a meal.
He immediately said something upsetting. Like that. Yeah.
So just like...
That immediately answered my questions. Like, did he see her? Yes, he did. He saw her.
He's just, like, testing the waters with her and everything. And she's like, oh, shit.
Sorry.
He's on to me. And then this is where I was going to bring up Carter.
Okay. All right. He's the worst here.
So, hold up for a second. Even before Carter spills the beans to James, before that happens, him and Patricia have a conversation because... Wanda is now being confronted by basically Child Protective Services, and Destiny is going to be taken away because these track marks on her thigh. Now, Patricia, of course, wants Carter to have some pull because of his standing as a doctor. He is well respected.
Yeah.
She wants him to talk to the police, talk to these other doctors. He says he will. At the dinner table, she mentions it again. Did you happen to talk to those doctors or police?
He was like, no.
He avoids the conversation. She asks again. And he makes an excuse like, well, you know, I'm really close to this promotion. How would it look if I started telling other people how to do their jobs?
Yeah.
He completely abandons his wife in this moment, if you ask me.
Like,
I understand.
Make waves.
He's a candidate for chief of psychiatry.
Yeah.
I understand wanting to get a boost in your career. I get it. You have to stand by your wife at some point. If she saw something and you said you believed it, you can't go back.
And there's also, like, children's lives are on the line.
Yes.
And he decides to not do shit.
He decides to not believe it.
Yeah. So there is that. So yeah, I was gonna give Carter the worst husband ever award.
Yeah. On my Kindle,
he's definitely up there.
Highlighted the passage where he, like, held her, and then my next highlight was him throwing her under the bus, but I put the note, Carter being caring, aw. And I put, note, never mind.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't say worst husband ever, but...
It's pretty bad. She's, like, looking at him across this table, like,
okay.
Don't say anything.
Just for...
Damn.
Yeah, she was giving him her wifely eyes, saying, please don't tell him anything, but I wouldn't say worst husband ever, because if you ask me, a murderer might be worse.
All right. Apples, oranges.
Apples to oranges. He sucks. He sucks as a husband. She's obviously pleading with her eyes, saying, don't say anything. Yeah. And he just sits there and spills the beans. All right, well, we need to clear the air.
This was...
James Harris. My wife did something.
Even if you didn't believe this, and you wanted to apologize for this, you shouldn't do it with your kid at the table.
Well, he literally throws Patricia under. Well, yeah, that too.
She's thrown under the bus 100%.
She's thrown under the bus. Yeah. So like everything that happened that we with Carter that we talked about in the first episode, and for like all the chapters that we've read for this one. All right, let's see. He gets mad at her whenever she calls the police. When she thinks there's a literal intruder on the roof. She's scared for her life. Yeah. And he's just like, oh, why are you calling the cops? They're going to think I'm a wife beater.
He said, why you call the National Guard? Overreaction much.
like after that happens, he says he'll start coming home at night because she's scared now.
Yeah, I highlighted that too.
He lasts all of 2 days.
And James Harris
Starts to work late again, yes.
And then James Harris comes and everything.
hangs out and talks about
Which I understand that he's grieving the death of his mother. He was a mama's boy.
Okay, but be there for your wife.
Yes, you have to be there for your wife as well. And he is completely abandoning her.
Yes. And then we have the whole thing with the police officers, and he's just like, all right, well, I know that I told my wife that I would try to have, like, a second medical opinion done on this kid. I'm just gonna ignore that. You know, I'm close to this person and everything. And then, after the cops are called on James, and he comes over, she's giving Carter the don't say a fucking word. And he says, I'm sure Patricia wants to apologize about what she said to the police.
about accusing you of this terrible crime.
Yeah, and of course James is like, oh, what did she say?
He knows.
He knows.
He's like, yeah, apologize to me.
I'm at the point where if Carter died, I wouldn't care.
I know. Me
Hate to say it. If he just disappeared, I don't care. He sucks. He's not a good husband.
Like,
Not a good father. There is not one interaction I've seen with him and his kids.
Yeah.
Other than the dinner table,
Yeah.
which he didn't help with.
We don't have much interaction.
Okay, after this apology, I highlighted James Harris does swallow food in this.
Mm-hmm.
So that goes to tell me that they're, of course, not like traditional vampires, how you would expect them to be. I think they can eat and drink normal food.
We just haven't really seen it.
Now, I know that he has drank stuff before, but he's not actually, like, eaten in the book. I'm pretty certain. I think so. I think he did drink things, but of course, he didn't eat, which is one of the symptoms of the children that were being eaten. They didn't hardly drink or eat anything. It sort of went mad. So I'm not sure if they're just losing it because they're drained, or are they slowly turning?
Maybe.
Which I'm starting to believe that they're slowly turning just based on what the supposed aunt started doing. I mean, she started eating a raccoon and then bit Patricia's ear off.
Yeah,
So that leads me to believe that they're either losing their minds or they're turning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaning towards turning.
Yeah. But if they're turning, then why are all of them dying?
I think they just don't know how to cope with
Or
it.
is there going to be like an army of the undead later on?
I don't necessarily think there's going to be an army of undead.
Undead children.
Undead children. Yeah, why would you
I might be wrong. They might just be losing their minds. You know, because maybe we don't know what all this does. It could be poisoning them. Who knows? This is something we've not read about before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these aren't traditional vampires.
That's true. So I was gonna get back on Carter really fast.
Yes, let's get back on topic of Carter and he sucks.
The last thing I was gonna ask, as a married couple, because y'all are married and everything, like, do y'all have like that married like little telepathy?
I feel like we do.
Like,
I think we do, for sure.
Each other are thinking.
I can sense what she's feeling all the time.
Sometimes, like, if I want something, I know this is like unrelated.
This is
if I want something to
off topic, husband and wife banter.
If I want to have something to like eat for like a snack or something, I'll just look.
She just looks at me and I know.
And he's like, ice cream?
Yes.
And then we go to Dairy Queen.
There was one time specifically, I remember though, as we were just sitting there.
I just stuck my tongue.
I was like, I'm kind of hungry. And you just look at me. Taco Bell. It's right on the nose.
It's pretty weird.
We can sort of, I feel like I can certainly sense what you're feeling.
If we were in this situation and I gave you that look, you'd be like, I ain't saying shit.
No, I wouldn't say shit to this dude.
Especially with our kid at the table.
Especially with this guy being a stranger, I'm not saying anything unless he says something. And then I'd get defensive.
Yeah.
I wouldn't throw my wife under the bus. I'd get defensive and beat his ass.
Because you're a good husband.
Thank you. No, I wouldn't throw my wife under the bus at all.
That's what
I'm ride or die.
That's what I was thinking, because I'm like, I feel like Zach and I are usually on the same
Oh,
page
yeah.
Have that
about
telepathy.
things. Yeah, it's just like we know like what each other are thinking usually.
Yeah.
Especially whenever we first started dating, it was really funny. Like I don't know what it was. Anytime it was like, I'm hungry. And then I'd be like, oh, do you want to go to this place? I'm like, I was literally just thinking that.
We do that pretty often.
That was in like the first month of us dating and everything. So I'm just like, all right, good sign.
Yeah, no, we've got that down. We usually know what each other's thinking. I can always sense what she's feeling. If something's wrong, she's trying to hide it. I know it.
Yeah.
I know something's wrong.
So Carter's just a crappy.
Carter sucks. He is terrible. I mean, based on what we're reading, which I'll be fair, we don't know a lot about the guy. It's just what we're told, which isn't a lot. But what we're told is that he sucks.
Yeah.
He sucks. James sucks.
James really does.
And now James knows that Patricia knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
James knows that Patricia knows.
Because Carter says, like they have a conversation about it. It's like, well, like, because they're talking to Blue, like, well, your mom said that James was doing something inappropriate to a child in the back of his van.
Why would you say that? That partially makes me feel like Carter's in on it.
He's bringing him the victims.
I honestly kind of believe that. I thought for a moment,
He's the guy on the roof.
Oh my god.
Well, I thought to myself, he's working constantly. He's working late. Could he be involved? Is he a vampire?
I don't think he's a vampire.
I don't think he's a vampire
No.
either, but I think he could potentially be involved.
But vampires have like people who like work for them and everything.
And him being a psych doctor, why is he working so late?
Because he wants that promotion.
But a psych doctor to work late?
I don't know. I don't know any psych doctors.
They usually don't work late.
They usually don't
Doctors
work late, I'd say.
late. They try to leave as early as freaking possible.
I'll be fair. I don't know any psych doctors, but I'd say they don't work late.
No,
Unless he's
doctors
working-
at my
They
office.
clock
unless
out at
he's
4
working
p.m.
Unless he's working at like a hospital, like he's in hospitals. Like,
I think he does. I think he actually does.
then he'd be there like all the time. A little defense to Carter.
So, literally, we're at a point where no one believes her. Patricia has no other choice but to go to her book club and see if they'll believe her.
Before we do that,
Yeah.
this one little cool, little creepy bit.
Mm-hmm.
After that whole getting thrown under the bus thing, she's like, "I'll see you out." She walks him out to the door, and he goes, "Trisha." He began voice low, and she turns on the hall light really quickly, and it blinds him, and a tear comes out his eye. She says it's childish, but it made me feel better.
Yes. Yeah, that was
What
nice.
was he gonna say to her?
I don't know. It was very like he was behind her, like looming behind her.
Yeah.
Trisha.
Now, this next chapter I actually really enjoyed.
About the book club.
Yes,
Yeah.
when she brings everything up to the book club.
I
And of
mentioned
course,
this earlier.
Grace is being a bitch about it and not believing her.
Yeah. Yeah, so she was like, James is selling drugs to kids.
Yeah, Grace
I can't
I can't
tell them
tell
that
the
he's a
actual
vampire.
thing.
Grace is so concerned with her public appearance that she just is completely disregarding it, saying that Patricia is embarrassing herself. I love this scene mostly for Slick, because she gets all
Slick is
biblical about it.
So funny.
She gets so biblical about it, and I was like, hell yeah. I believe you. I trust you. Let's smite him.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that scene.
Like, I'm doing God's work.
Which is
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of like
Get
that
this man.
lady on Santa Clarita Diet.
Yes.
She's like, "I am your disciple," to the zombie.
So, yeah, I was going to touch on, like, why they don't really believe her when they've been, like, they don't believe her and everything, but they've been through so much over the years. And also, they literally just read a book on Ted Bundy written by one of his close friends
Yeah.
about, like, how they didn't see it coming that he was a killer.
Too close to
And,
it.
like,
Yeah.
And, like, they're crime junkies. I feel like they should know that you never really know anyone. Ever.
You never know what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah. And
well, that's what they said at the last book club. They were talking about, like, how stupid could you be not to see that Ted Bundy
was Ted Bundy. Yeah.
And you were right there. And then they're like, that would never happen.
It's like, well, y'all are being stupid, and there's a vampire in your neighborhood. But, like, this quote wasn't from that chapter. It was from the chapter where, like, Grace was talking to her and everything. But she says there isn't anything wrong with him because people who have something wrong with them don't live here.
Yes.
And everything. So it's like just this big class divide that we have seen between the people who live in the old village versus the people who live in 6 Mile and everything. Yeah, it's just like there aren't any bad people who live in our neighborhood. Like, if he was bad, he would probably live in 6 Mile and everything. But then it's just like, all right, well, you literally just read a book about Ted Bundy and how, like, people who were the closest to him didn't know that he was a serial killer. So how can you say that our neighbor isn't into bad stuff too?
Bundy
you never see him.
A wife or a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And they did have kids. I can't remember.
I think he had at least one kid. Yeah, there are a lot of serial killers who, like, do have, like, a lot of close relationships with people. Like, like, it's just a myth that, like, all serial killers are, like, just, you know, antisocial. Yeah.
The most successful serial killers that there are the ones that you never expect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he was so friendly and family. I didn't think that he was a killer. Well, he was.
Let's think of the TV show Dexter.
Yeah.
Very successful killer. No one you would expect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's usually how it goes.
I think, of course, the most recent one would be the Chris Watts, right? Like, nobody saw that coming.
The family man that you would not expect.
It's like, you have it, like, who would expect that someone would literally just take out their entire family?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's...
We could have a whole other podcast on serial killers. I want to get into that topic just about talking about him, but we can't do it in our time constraint. So, back on the subject, though, of the book, I will say Grace did redeem herself at the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
I did not like Grace up until this point, but she really redeemed herself and said, you know, I've known you for 7 years now. I might as well give you the benefit of the doubt. Here's some resources. James Harris does have that van. Yeah. And this is where it is.
Yeah, they find out that he's keeping it at a storage unit.
Yes.
Taking it out at night.
Yep. So Grace redeems herself there at the end of the chapter. And that sort of concludes...
That's where we're at.
Where we're at so far.
Yeah, they kind of just end, like, they're starting to put together, like, a compelling case against him to, like, actually bring to the police. Like, literally, this is all of our evidence. Like, I know it sounds crazy, and it might be a coincidence, but here's everything that we have against him. So, yeah, we're at that point, and if you want to join us next week, we're going to be reading chapters 20 through 30.
Yeah, we're going to have 2 more episodes for this book coming up.
2 more episodes on this book.
I think it's going to really ramp up. We're close to the halfway point. It's going to ramp up now.
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of
It's already started to ramp up. I think it's going to exponentially just jump.
Oh, yeah. There was a ton of stuff that happened in these last couple chapters.
Yeah, we could keep talking about it, but due to time constraints, we're just going to try to keep it as brief as possible. Yeah. But now on to the next.
All right. So if you want to cut out at this point, we're just going to be talking about what we've been reading on our own. Hey, what have you been reading?
Nothing.
You disappoint me.
I am going to be reading. I think the next thing I'm going to be reading is The Education of Little Tree. I talked about it last episode. Yeah. I delayed reading my chapters this week up to the finish line. But you know, I'm going to try to read this really quickly, and then in the meantime, while I can't continue reading this, I'm going to start reading this other book, Education of Little Tree by Forrest Carter. So I'll have an update next episode, next Sunday.
Andrea, do you want to tell everyone what we read this week?
I'm not looking forward to this part.
Me and Olivia and I, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
did
Literature.
a tandem read of that book we mentioned in the last podcast, Carving for Cara. I'm going to commit to Cara, I guess.
Carving for Cara?
Carving. Okay, yeah, Carving for Cara.
I thought it was Carving for Cara because
Okay.
that just rolls off the tongue. But it's spelled like Cara.
Alliteration-wise, it would make sense to me.
Carving for Cara.
I know nothing about this. I'm just talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So last episode, I told you what the dedication was. It's going to be about a guy chasing a girl through a pumpkin patch and them banging.
They bang. Me and Andrea talked about it earlier in the week, and she mentioned it's a dude chasing a girl through a pumpkin patch, and I was like, they bang, don't they?
Okay. So, quick little summary, and then we can hit on some parts, I guess. They meet briefly at a coffee shop. He's sitting there. He works as a, what kind of cap hacker? Hat hacker?
He's called a white hat hacker
A
for
white
the
hat
CIA.
hacker for the CIA. Hayden's just like, oh.
Well, okay.
God.
Here's the thing. I'll admit I'm a bit of a nerd. There are jobs where people are paid to expose weaknesses in companies' websites, and they are paid for it.
So,
So that's what it is.
That's what he is.
we had
to
the
look it up.
CIA.
I'm familiar with this. I've actually talked to people that do this kind of work.
Yeah, so a white hat hacker is someone who basically tries to get into other people's systems to show what weaknesses they have, so they can
They can fix it.
They can fix it and build it better.
Yeah.
So the CIA.
Yeah, which if you're not familiar with dark romance, it seems like they're always a hacker. So it's kind
Really?
of funny. Yeah,
Is there a nerd
it's
trope?
because they gotta be able.
Or are they cool
They
hackers?
gotta be able to hack into their social media,
and
their cameras in their house.
cameras. Yeah.
Oh, so they're
They're
stalkers.
Yes.
voyeuristic. Yeah.
Yes.
So they're banging their stalkers.
Yes.
Yes.
They're banging their stalkers.
Is that a fetish?
So?
Is that what the TikTok girlies are into?
Maybe.
Yes, that's what the TikTok girlies are into.
They like to bang their stalkers.
They like to read about it.
Okay.
I hope that not everyone.
I don't think they actually want any of this to happen. Everyone's telling you more about it.
Okay,
I don't
I'm
think-
along for the
I
ride.
don't think anybody. ever
At this
dreams about
point,
this.
to all of our listeners, I know nothing about this. I'm going to stop talking, and we're just going to listen.
Before I proceed, this will spoil the entire little book of Carving for Cara. It's only 100-something pages.
Yeah.
So here we go. They meet at a coffee shop. She barely walks by the table and they make eye contact. And she's like, that's the hottest guy I've ever seen in my life. But she goes and hangs out with her friend. And they sit at the table. They have a little conversation. They talk about this party they're going to go to later. And they get up and leave. She's dreading seeing her ex at this party. And then the next chapter is Rhett. And he's like, that girl is going to be my everything.
Question. Already, I have a question.
Yes.
Is Rhett the super hot hacker?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So Rhett,
So they both are into each other.
yeah. I sort of.
Him more than her.
Yeah.
Because he's basically looking at her
Rhett's
like, oh my gosh, you're going to have my children.
Yeah.
And
Well, he
she's
is
just
an
like-
immediate
She's like, he's
stalker.
hot. I wouldn't mind having sex with him.
Yeah, he's immediately obsessed with her, where she's just like, oh my gosh, that
He's
guy's
super hot.
and
Yeah.
everything.
Okay.
So she's like, I bet he could,
He could get it.
really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's sitting there like, that is going to be like, and I will dedicate my entire life to ruining her. She likes it dirty.
They always have to ruin the heroine too.
Yeah, so he calls, I know she likes it dirty, and I can't stop thinking about her. I'm dreaming about her. She's going to be my little nightmare is what he calls her. So
Gross.
he's sitting there at the coffee shop, and he's just like, I'm a hack. So he hacks. He finds the coordinates for this party based on what she said. It's like next to this river with a really tiny driveway.
Yeah, because he could hear her while she and her friend were talking about like the party.
Yeah, because her friend is very uncouth and tells us like, you need to get laid tonight because your vibrator's getting tired.
Yeah, so he found out where this party was gonna be at.
Yeah, and his plan is, well, I guess his plan is just to stalk her at this point.
Yeah.
So he's gonna go to this party, find out what's happening, find out why she doesn't want to run into her ex.
Mm-hmm.
And so he gets the coordinates. And first he stops at a Halloween store and gets himself a mask. And
of course.
Yeah, so they go home and dress
gotta
up
have
and
a mask.
everything.
I don't know what's going on, but it seems like the TikTok girls are obsessed with just
Cara,
dudes in masks.
Cara is a little background on her. She is a tattoo artist who lives in an old Victorian home that she got super duper 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 cheap somehow.
Because it's probably haunted.
Somehow. And she has like a gazillion pumpkins on her porch that she hand carves every year.
She's an artist.
She's like unrealistic.
Yeah.
Anyway. So that's why the carving comes in.
Yeah.
So they go to the party. He stalks her. She runs into her ex. She's intoxicated, and he convinces her, like, "Hey, babe,
let's go upstairs.
Let's go upstairs.
Let's go upstairs."
So they go upstairs, and she has disappointing sex. And Rhett, he comes in, or he's like outside their door, watching him. He's like, "How dare she? She knows I'm here. How dare she do this?"
Does she know that he exists?
No.
Okay, so he's crazy.
Besides that one interaction, not even interaction,
spoken.
that one glance in the coffee
was
shop,
all he needed.
She doesn't know who he is.
He's like, she already belongs to me, and he's having sex with my woman.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, she'll pay for that later. So he leaves, I guess.
Yeah.
And they finish up. He messes up her makeup.
Mm-hmm.
The ex does. And she's like, "Oh my god, what a dick. And my friend is gonna know I've hooked up with you because my makeup is all messed up." So then she goes downstairs. She drinks a little bit more, trying to like forget. And her friend is having sex somewhere.
Which is apparently disappointing too, because she mentions that it doesn't last long. So I guess he is bad too.
Yeah. I'm guessing we're supposed to think nobody compares to Rhett.
Yeah.
So she goes downstairs. They're like, "Hey, Cara, come apple bob." And she's like, "All right." So she does it. So she's like, "There's a perfect excuse for why my makeup's all a mess." And so she's doing it. She's bobbing for the apples. And then all of a sudden a hand comes behind her and just pushes her into the apple bobbing tank. And she's like choking and dying.
Yeah, she's like drowning.
And then he lets her up, and it's her ex. And he's like, "Haha, that's so funny." And she's like, "I could have died." And then, she's looking out into the darkness, and she's like, "I think I see somebody out there." And of course, Rhett is watching. But she doesn't know that.
He's wearing a mask, right?
Rhett's like, "I'm always watching."
Yeah, he's wearing a mask. He's in the shadows.
Yeah.
So she's having a bad day.
Being a creep. Unless she bangs.
She and her friend meet back up. They get drunk some more.
Get an Uber.
She calls an Uber. Uber's gonna be there any minute. Rhett,
Since he's a hacker,
into the Uber app somehow, and plugs in this random partygoer's car because he's passing out on the lawn. So he took his keys, and he's like, "I'm gonna be her Uber driver."
What?
Yes.
So he drives them home to her house, and
in her drunken state, she's like, "I recognize you."
But she's also like, "You should totally come to the party tomorrow."
Yeah, she tells him that you should come to our party tomorrow. Invites him to their party.
So he gets her home lays both of them drunken on the couch. And they're like, all right, good night. And they fall asleep. And he goes upstairs and implants cameras everywhere.
Ew.
So then he leaves. He goes home. He's like, I'm going to plan my revenge on what's his name? Jonah. Because he can't touch what's mine. And he could have hurt little Nightmare. Anyway, so he goes home and he gets is that when he gets the text from the CIA guy?
I thought
that might be the next morning.
I think it was the next morning.
Okay,
because he goes back to the party.
Eats a disappointing
that
meal.
night.
And he's like, all right, I got a perfect gift for my baby. So he goes back to the party. He goes back to where they're having like a little bonfire, and Jonah's out there smoking a joint. And he sits next to him, and he's like, yeah, pass it. So they're talking, and then Jonah drops the joint, and Rhett, like, comes up and, like, stabs him, like, in the neck, I think. And, like, all the partygoers are, like, passed out on the lawn.
Because everyone's wasted.
It's, like, really early in the morning.
Yeah.
And nobody's paying any attention. And they're like, and he's like, no one's paying attention to any blood. It's so close to Halloween. So he decapitates Jonah. He wraps Jonah up in a tarp, throws him in that little river near the place, goes back for the head. He's like, this will be perfect. So he sits down there and he cuts the eyeballs out, like the tongue out.
He starts carving it
And
like
carves
a
it like a
jack-o'-lantern.
jack-o'-lantern. Because his girl loves jack-o'-lanterns.
Carving for
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Jonah probably didn't deserve to die.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
He did try to, like, drown her in the apple bottom, which is kind of a dick move.
Yeah.
It's not kill and decapitate.
I wouldn't say it's kill worthy.
I think they said he did have, like, a temper. She says earlier, like, he has a temper, but he's never hurt me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, yeah, that's kind of over the top. But, all right, he takes the head, the carved head. It's a motorcycle. He checks on the monitors. They haven't moved. They're still drunk. So I guess they go to bed.
Yeah.
Next morning, he's, when does he find? That's later. So next morning, he's like, okay, they're up and about. And
they're also like, how the hell did we get here?
Yeah, they have no idea how they got there. But they're like, you want to just sit here and eat junk food and wait for the next party? And they're like, yeah. So they have a fun little girls' day. They just sit and eat junk food. Anyway, so they start getting ready, and he's like, all right, time for my plan. But in the meantime, whoever's his boss in the CIA texts him and says, hey, how's it going with the surveillance on this mafia boss? And he's like, I don't give a shit about this mafia boss. I'm busy watching.
He says that?
I forgot this. So the backstory is that
somebody
he works for the CIA because some mafia boss killed his dad.
And he's made it his life work to avenge his father.
And he's just abandoned that?
Yes.
He met a girl?
He's like, there's more important things. And I'm like, what? Yeah. Okay. So I gotta watch My Little Nightmare. Ew. Okay. So, yeah, so he's like, all right, well, they're getting ready for their party, and they've already left for the party. I'm gonna go to their house. So he goes to the house, and he plants Jonah's head right outside the door
her porch
with all her other jack-o'-lanterns.
Oh, she's gonna love this.
And then does he go inside and he finds her underwear?
No, that was whenever he was planting the camera.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
So, also, when he's planting the cameras in there,
Went through the undies drawer.
No, he found her underwear on the floor and he's like, she left them.
Like,
Oh my
no,
God.
it's dirty laundry. She doesn't
He
know who you
pockets
are.
them.
So we're following a psychopath.
Yes. Okay, because like it gives Haunting Adeline vibes.
The whole time he's like, she's doing this on purpose to like turn me on. She's like, she has no idea. He's
so much creepier because it's like she does not know you. And I know we're not really supposed to talk about what we read, but we talked about it the other day because I was like, even Zayd, like they had multiple interactions before he even actually approached her. Where this guy is just like, I'm going balls to the walls. I'm just gonna like we're going crazy in here. You're my person and everything. It's just like, I'm gonna steal your panties the first night because I think that you left them specifically for me. I'm so happy. He's like, okay, it could just be dirty laundry.
Also, when he's carving up Jonah's face, he's like, my baby's gonna love it.
I know I'm not an artist like her, but she's gonna love it.
And I think he says, like, as pretty as she is or something, I'll have more opportunities to, like, work on my carving. Anyway, okay.
The second party.
The second party.
Tell them about that.
Second party. They go. I think there's another big bonfire or something. Mm-hmm. And there's a band, and it's really loud, and everybody loves it, and they're just, like, so wrapped up in it. And she's like, I gotta go pee! And so she goes to a cornfield out in the back to pee, but she's like, this isn't far enough. And so she goes further into the cornfield, and she starts to pee. Also, Rhett took Jonah's mask after he killed him. And so he's wearing it to this party. So she's peeing. he starts lumbering up to her, but all she could see is the pumpkin mask or whatever. And she's like, Jonah, like, you're a disappointing fuck.
Get out of here.
Let's see what she says, though. She's like, sex is terrible with you in some, like, roundabout way.
Yeah.
And he just keeps coming. And then she's like, that's not Jonah, because this guy is actually huge.
Of course he's beefy.
Yeah, he's beefy, covered in tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
He also has a Jacob's ladder.
Yes. Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's a piercing on your junk.
It's multiple piercings.
It's multiple piercings, yeah.
Why do we know this?
Because
it's important to the plot.
Because I read the story.
It's described in detail how it reacts when things happen.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so she's still kind of peeing, and he's still coming at her. She's like, "Leave me alone." So,
because she still thinks it's Jonah at this point,
right?
But then she gets up and she's like, "You're not Jonah. You're hot."
I don't think she's thinking that. She's like, holy crap,
this guy is coming at me. And he's like, run. She's like, okay. And so she runs into the cornfield. And then it switches back to Rhett's view. And Rhett's like, yeah, she's running away from the party, which means she wants
she wants me to chase
If she wanted to be away from me, she would have run back toward the party, past me.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not gonna run past you. Like, you're in between me and the party. Like, I'm not gonna run towards you.
Does he have a knife?
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't have a knife.
I don't think so.
I thought there was like something other than him being threatening. So she runs. I think she breaks her shoe. She gets caught.
Of course.
Uh-huh.
Oh my god.
Oh,
God. They're in a cornfield, Hayden.
Uh-huh.
What do you think he pleasures her with?
No! No! Why?
They're in it, and he just reaches over, grabs a corn stalk, rips up to just the cob.
The husk.
He shucks that corn and then just shoves it in there. He shucks her corn.
That's the part I was like, it is so gross. Just can't.
Well, one of the things that I thought of was because he does say, like, before that happens, he's like, you're so wet for me. And I'm just like, dude, she literally just peed.
She didn't get the wipe.
And also, like, if you were coming after me,
I'd probably be peeing my pants.
I would piss my pants. Yeah, no wonder I'm wet. It's piss.
There's pee on that corn.
There's pee on that corn.
We're not done.
For the viewers here, or the listeners here that can't view, I'm making a face.
But we're not.
But wait, there's more. So, after that's done, she starts crawling away.
So obviously she's not into it.
She's like,
No, she's kind of.
she's like, that's weird. I kind of like it. But anyway, so she starts crawling away because she's like, I shouldn't like this. This is weird.
But that's the thing about all of these, like, smut things, is that all the girls, like, are kind of into it.
Yeah.
Even though it's, like, fucking weird. They are, like, a little part of them is just like, I don't know.
Pretty much SA, but they're kind of into it.
Oh.
Yeah, kind of.
It's like what we talked about last week.
Yeah.
She was asking for it.
Even though not really.
No,
even though
not
she ended
Oh my
up
God,
kind of
okay.
being into
Okay, so she's crawling away. What happened next?
Crawling away. But first, he takes the corn.
No, I know what you're gonna say. There is no way.
Cleans it off.
with his tongue.
And then he pockets his jacket. He's saving it for later.
I thought you were gonna say he's gonna eat it.
He licked it.
It's raw, uncooked corn.
Yeah, I know. It's not better. But, you know.
Anyway, so he's like, like he does. Anyway, like, all right, I'll let her get a head start. And then he starts following her. She's running to a pumpkin patch.
Much worse.
And this is what he's had planned. He's like, I will do her in the pumpkin patch.
Yeah.
Or he's like, I will claim her and ruin her in the pumpkin patch. And so they get to the pumpkin patch. She starts throwing pumpkins.
They're rotten pumpkins.
Yeah. The pumpkin guts are like splashing up on him.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if I don't think I highlighted anything because I didn't want to keep it. So she gets caught again. He ties her down with pumpkin vines.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then what happens?
I think they just do the do.
I thought he did something for the pumpkin.
With a pumpkin? No.
No,
No, because they're like gross.
because he says something about.
Don't want to say it.
He says something like, "I know you like pumpkin cream."
Oh my
Oh
god.
yeah, because she like at the coffee shop, she like got
She had a
some-
PSL.
she got some like cream from the coffee flips, and she just like kind of like
there's a pumpkin.
whipped it off and like licked her finger all sexually at him and
I
everything.
swore there was a pumpkin.
No, I think it was just that comment.
So at this point, she's tied up.
Yeah, they're doing it. And she's like, "This is the best sex I've ever had."
Of course.
But what does that make me? Like, am I really like his? Because he keeps calling her little nightmare. He's like, "Am I a little nightmare?" Maybe. I'm going back.
He does.
There's something with a pumpkin.
He takes the corn back out and like.
Jams it up in there.
No, well, he makes her like he puts it in her mouth and he's like suck on it
Oh.
while I fuck you.
Okay.
So he's going. He's a little trooper. He's like, I'm doing her harder and faster, and then she's gonna orgasm, and
That's how it works.
that's how it works.
It's guaranteed every time.
I mean, for a hot guy like him, yes.
Oh. Oh, also, I want an honorable mention
Yes.
because this reminded me of my little dream I had one time. He says, "Yeah, you wanted me to plow you in this field, didn't you?" It reminded me of Plow the Sister. Plow the Field.
Next episode, we get on to Andria's dreams.
No, we're not. Reading that one.
I want to do Andria's dream segment.
No.
She has some fucked up dreams.
I haven't dreamed anything in a while. So.
I think ever since we got married, they slowed down.
Yeah.
Before we met, they were.
I just got too much going on.
Yeah, they were more messed up before we met.
Anyway, okay. So
But they do it like hardcore
in the pumpkin
patch while she's tied up and everything. Let's talk about what happens after that.
Okay. So
What happens next?
he's like, "Come with me," and she's like, "Okay." So
Okay.
she's like, "What am I gonna do? Because like, if I cause, no one's gonna believe me or hear me or something." And she's like, "I'm just gonna go with this man because I kind of into it."
Mm-hmm.
So she gets on the motorcycle. They drive back to her house. How do you know her? And he's like, I know
everything
you."
about you.
Now, in this next scene, does she notice the head on her porch?
Yes. So she's walking up. He's staying like a considerable distance away from her. So she's up on the porch fiddling with her keys, and he's still like halfway down. And she looks over to the right, and there's his head.
Yep.
Is it
That's
glowing
weird.
like a jack-o'-lantern?
Yeah, he lit it and everything with the
Okay.
candle.
Yeah.
That's where the story ends?
Yeah, that's where it is.
That's it?
But
Yeah.
guess what, Hayden?
There's a
There
part
are
2.
2 more books.
There are 2 more books
Hmm.
in this little series.
And also, one's a Christmas one.
Yeah. The third one in the series actually doesn't come out until December 1st. So we gotta wait.
Bummer.
Unfortunately.
Who is the author of this?
There's
I gotta
2.
look again. Yeah.
There's 2?
Melissa McSherry and Dana Leanne.
Yeah.
I just want to say something really quickly to the both of you. Are you okay? And
No.
who hurt you?
Nobody hurt me. I'm not okay.
So that's what we read.
Hayden, what final thoughts on that?
It's not what I expected. It didn't go where I thought
You
it
weren't
would.
expecting corn, I bet.
I was shocked by the corn.
Who were we?
You didn't have to even actually say it, though. I knew exactly what was going to happen once you said certain things. It was very strange. I feel a little assaulted by it. But yeah, whatever you're into. No shame.
Not into this. Very clear.
Not actually into this.
But you enjoy the
but
read.
Enjoy reading.
Oh my god, because it's so fun.
It's so funny. I would not want this.
I was
to
not
actually
expecting
happen to
corn.
me.
I'm curious if
I got to the
there
corn part. I set down my Kindle. I had to sit there for a second.
I would assume that most of the people that read this,
Don't actually want
no, they don't actually want
Yeah.
something like this. They read it because it is entertaining. Yes.
Yeah.
Would you read this and say, I am not entertained?
It would be a hard read for me. It'd be hard to get through. But overall, yeah, hearing this story, it's kind of entertaining.
It was really short.
I
We got some laughs out of it.
have an interesting pick for you.
All right. What is next on the agenda? We're at an hour and 24 minutes.
Wow.
All right.
Short
All right.
story.
Short story time.
Which I'm
With
sure
Andria.
it'll get cut down. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so since this is only our second episode, and actually our first episode just got released.
Yeah.
Like to what as we're recording, it got released like today and everything. So we don't have anybody sending us anything yet. So I think Andrea's going to read us a little thing that she wrote. Yes.
I wrote this in college for a little exercise. It's really short. So here we go. Her fork stabbed through the soft pancake and twisted a piece until it was free from the rest. The steady hand raised as she brought the fluffy cake up to her rigid mouth. I watched her heavy lids close in bliss and exhaustion as she savored the syrup. Her eyes opened quickly when she heard me slide into the booth with her. "Hey, Lucy," I muttered as I scooted across the old sticky nylon upholstery. She quickly put down her fork onto her pile of pancakes and took a genteel sip of her black coffee. Her hands were shaking with anger. "Jack, where the hell have you been? I haven't seen you in a month." "Don't you know I was worried about you?" she said, scowling at me through the steam rising from the porcelain cup. She shook her head and placed the coffee down and took up her butter knife. She jokingly pointed it toward me, and I felt like she knew where I had been and was torturing me with a twisted version of spin the bottle. Of course, I was just being paranoid. I shifted uncomfortably, but I still smiled as I said, I know, but you know. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy." "Wow, are you implying I'm not fun?" she said, feigning hurt. I shrugged my shoulders to annoy her with a lack of response. She put down her dull knife, crossed her arms, and sighed. "Well, you're no picnic either. Between you and the dead people, I don't know who is livelier." She chuckled, a deep and thick laugh due to the syrup. I smiled and returned her joke. "Hey now, you're looking pretty dead yourself. When is the last time you slept?" Her joyful outburst had ended just as soon as it had begun. The bags under her eyes looked so heavy that she was starting to look like one of her clients. Her fingers scratched the back of her neck nervously, and she looked straight at me. I cannot stand direct eye contact, especially with a woman. Lucy's cheeks blushed as she reached for my hand on the table and caged it in both of her hands. "Work has been absolute hell," she said, looking away from my eyes. "Why's that?" I leaned in closer to hear her, head tilted downward. She leaned in too and whispered so the other diners would not hear her. "There has been a sicko running amok, and I've had a surplus of corpses to repair." I froze, not because of fear, but because I was intrigued. A sicko? What is he doing? More like, what is he not doing? I'm telling you, Jack, in all my years as a coroner, I've never seen so much brutal and unnecessary mutilation. I tried to hide my grin, but chuckled instead. "What the hell is so funny, Jack?" She quickly let go of my hands. I regained my composure and collected her hands, patting them softly. Nothing. You just have to have the best job in the world." She took my comment with a grain of salt and attributed it to me being a smartass. The waitress came, and I ordered the same pancakes Lucy was having. I put down the menu and took a sip of my latte, while I continued to admire Lucy's precision with the butter knife. And that's it.
Snaps.
Snaps.
Do you want to tell everyone else again how they can give us stuff to read if they'd like?
Sure. So you can first follow us on social media, OneLitPod on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. If you want to submit your short story to be read, you can submit that to onelitpod@gmail.com. That is ONELITPOD@gmail.com.
And we will read your stuff on the air. You can keep it anonymous if you'd like. If you just want to, if it's like fan fiction, or if it's like a bigger piece of work that you have and you just want to give us a chapter to read, or just a little short insert of a thing, so people can check your work out and everything. We just want to promote authors and writers here as well, as long while also talking about these book reviews that we're going over and everything. And then I got a little bit of literary news to close us out. So I've been seeing this in like on social media a lot lately, but Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried will star in the movie adaptation thriller The Housemaid, based on the best-selling novel by Frida McFadden, which I've never read any of her stuff or anything, but it sounds like really interesting. I definitely want to just like watch the movie whenever it comes out. But it's about a young and beautiful woman, Millie, who applies and is offered a job as a live-in housekeeper for a wealthy couple, Nina and Andrew Winchester. Things go downhill quickly as Nina Winchester exhibits increasingly bizarre and frustrating behavior. So sounds really interesting, and I will probably definitely check it out.
I need to read some of her stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody recommends it.
Yeah, I've seen it on social media a lot lately. Like, it's just blown up and everything. I think Andrea kind of just told y'all how to contact us on social media. And like I said, if you guys want to join us next week for the book review, we're going to be going over chapters 20 and 30 of A Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. And we'll see you next week.
See ya!
Bye!